Hello and welcome to episode 27 of Area Control Bros.
Welcome.
Yeah.
We're here for two consecutive weeks this time, which is not unprecedented, but welcome that we've all made it. Today we're talking about Star Wars Rebellion, which is a game that I'm sure everybody has heard of or seen in the top of BGG and is kind of a monolith in this genre, but it's a game that because it is I'm gonna say it's exclusively two player. There's technically a four-player mode where you are each playing half of what one person normally would do, but I don't really count that
Right.
as a four-player mode. It's basically a two-player game only. And
Is it
unlike,
is it
oh,
fair
sorry.
to call it a monolith actually when you've got the Dune game and the Lord of the Rings game that have a similar sort of vibe going on?
It's true that I think people compare War of the Ring to Star Wars Rebellion quite often, but I think it's mostly because they're both the two-player thematic games of their respective, super big franchise. I don't actually think there's a whole lot in common in gameplay between War of the Ring and Star Wars Rebellion. Like the flow of the game and the way you actually do stuff in combat are all different. Um, I guess the
But
one
I've
thing
not
in
played War of the Ring, but
oh
Dune War for Arrakis does seem at least somewhat similar to Star Wars Rebellion to me. I mean, different enough that, I wouldn't, you know, go as far as to say they're the same game or anything like that. They're definitely
yeah,
different, but
I think War for Arrakis is kind of halfway in between them. But I'd say
hmm,
War of the Ring is more different from Rebellion. But I mean, War for Arrakis was by the War of the Ring devs,
right.
whereas Rebellion's by Corey, and so it's like totally different dev. And yeah, I mean, also I'd say there's no worker placement element to War of the Ring, really, or to War for Arrakis. And honestly, Rebellion feels like worker placement is kind of right at the forefront of the gameplay for this. Obviously, it's area control in a big way, but the way you actually go about your turn is kind of worker placement-y, you know?
Hmm.
You're sending out your heroes to do things, whereas in War for Arrakis and War of the Ring, you're kind of like sending armies, and they may have heroes in them that are represented by plastic, but in Rebellion, the heroes are not plastic. They are like a separate entity that you can use to move the
Right.
fleets or perform missions and things. Um, but anyway, splitting hairs, obviously they're all kind of in the same niche, which is thematic two-player area control. Um,
Right.
but anyway, yeah, this one is actually in the top 10 on BGG, if you guys can believe it.
Really?
Yep. Interestingly, it's one below War of the Ring. They're battling it out. They're
Yeah, that
battling
is
it.
that is interesting. And to follow up on that comparison, it looks like Star Wars Rebellion has quite a few more voters than War of the Ring. Although War of the Ring has had, first and second edition that are separated on BGG. So
Mhm.
maybe together they have a comparable amount. But
Geez, Dune Imperium Uprising is at 10 now? Holy
yeah,
moly.
Dune Imperium has two of the top 10 spots. That's
What
crazy.
the heck? That's crazy. Anyway, but Rebellion, unlike a lot of the games we talk about, which are like, oh, this is number 3050 and it has 200 ratings or whatever, or it's some old out of print game. This is a game that's in print and it's obviously quite popular. It's well regarded for it to be in the top 10. It has to be at least popular to some extent.
Yeah, it's been around for a good while too, right? Like this
Two,
isn't like a new game, you know?
2016
Yeah,
feels
believe it or
like
not, it's
yesterday.
like almost 10 years now.
Oh God, don't say that.
It's funny to think about, but yeah. And I gotta say, this is like a solid design. I don't think it would be fair to say that this is in the top 10 because of it being Star Wars.
It
And I'm
helps.
sure that accounts for a lot of it does help, yeah. I'm sure that does account for a lot of the people that want to try the game for the first time and some of the popularity there. But I would like to imagine that this is a world where even rethemed into something else, this game would have still, shown through and risen the ranks a little bit.
Yeah. I I I might have to disagree with you on that, Blake, because I think that part of the thing that makes this such a good game to me and such a game that I like is the kind of like I don't know, like when you're playing Civilization 5 or 6 or whatever on the computer and the like ahistorical stuff that happens. Like most of the things that I remember about this game and like the stories that I tell about this game afterwards are like, oh, like this game, Admiral Akbar was the main character because like Mon Calamari got blown up and then he went and did a bunch of this like important
Right.
stuff, you know? Like,
It's fun when you're creating your own Star Wars story.
I think I'm gonna go in between you guys. I think I agree with Blake's idea that this is a super solid design. And that is with or without Star Wars, this is a really good game. But I think when you throw in the Star Wars, that's what really puts it over the top. Because this to me feels like one of the most thematic games you can play in the area control genre. Because like I feel like every game is going to have some sort of story, and it's because it's the characters like from the original trilogy that like everybody knows that you can kind of like weave this story in your head that's really going to bring like that play of the game to life if you have, some modicum of imagination. And even without that, I think the game is good, but I think with that, it's just like it really dials it up to 11, like it really makes certain things that would otherwise be sort of like, that was a good strategic play. Now it's like, oh, isn't it really funny that like Chewbacca is being interrogated, on Tatooine or something?
Right.
Like just saying those words in a sentence is sort of like a little bit funny, but
Mm,
like if it were just like Joe Schmo is getting interrogated on Blart 4, it's like cool, I guess. Like there's a little bit
right.
of theme coming in here that's doing some
Like
lifting.
imagine it was like in the Twilight Imperium universe and it was
Yeah,
like Catius of like
yeah, the
it would be like who gives a shit? Yeah.
biggest whiskerus of the Hakan is
Right.
uh,
He's
was
getting
taken
interrogated
captive
on
by the Mentak. I don't know.
yeah.
yeah,
But
it's like I
anyway,
haven't read the books. Get out of here.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Wars, it's like everybody knows a little bit about Star Wars.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, weight 3.75 for this thing. Is that true? Is this a 3.75?
I think it's got a good amount of mechanics. Like I think you do need to have some board games under your belt before you like hop into this. Like if all you've played is Risk and
Oh,
Monopoly, you might not be able to like
you'll be in
proc this
trouble.
super well. Yeah.
I think that okay, I will say that the one thing that always ends up coming up that I always have to like go back to the rulebook for is rules about captured leaders. Because
Hmm.
there's a whole rule set about how when you capture leaders, it's like you can treat them as things you can drag around on your ships. They take up capacity. But then also there's a rule where they can roll against missions that are attempted against them, which doesn't specifically say like interrogation missions, but I believe the only missions that can be attempted against them are usually interrogation missions because the rulebook doesn't say interrogation. You just assume that it's interrogations. But then it's like, what if somebody's attempting a rescue of the captured leader? Is that considered to be an attempted mission against that leader, or is it like an attempted mission for that leader because they're saving the leader, not going against it? Anyway, you
It's like
can
they're
get,
not going to resist their own capture, right?
yeah, so
Like,
it's like, what's going,
or
Right.
anyway,
or
any,
resist their own rescue.
yeah, yeah. I think it's just one of those things where like let's just go with what makes sense. But anyway, I think that was one area of the rule book where it does I do tend to forget parts of those rules. But I don't feel other than that, I don't feel the weight a great deal in this game because a lot of things, the phases of this game are actually pretty elegant. Like it's pretty clear cut what you're doing at any given time, and there's a nice sequence of things. And ultimately you're just kind of putting your heroes on a mission and then going into the phase where you do the missions or move your fleets. And,
Yeah.
it kind of just makes sense. I don't think it feels that heavy.
I will say the thing I love about this game is how easy it is to get into the victory conditions because the rebels just have to sow enough dissent and buy enough time to to reach the round in which they just win because everybody finally rebels and the Empire has to find and destroy the rebel base. I really like that cat and mouse game that it ends up creating.
I think that that is the core of the game. That's definitely true. Maybe we should have brought that up first, but I think that's what really sets this game apart from War of the Ring and War for Arrakis, which is that in War of the Ring, the hobbits are going to Mount Doom, and Mount Doom's always in the same spot.
Mm,
You know, and War for Arrakis, they tried to mix it up a little bit by making the different sieges different values, but it didn't really land for me. This game, the rebels not only can keep the location of the base hidden for much of the game if they're careful and kind of canny, but also they can move the rebel base. And so even if it starts in one position, there's no guarantee it'll be there forever. And it really lends itself not just to the theme of the game, but to these sort of the building momentum of stress that's affecting both players because it's like the Imperials have this clock. It's like I have to find the rebel base. Anything else, like the rebels are trying to distract me, but I have to find it. And like sometimes you'll find it, but you won't be able to take it and they'll be able to move it. And in the case of the rebels, the Imperials are constantly stamping on them and ruining their economy and ruining their ability to do anything, it feels like. But the crucial thing is as Ben mentioned, the rebels don't have to have an economy to win. Like they don't have to win a space battle, although sometimes, that helps for some of the objectives. They just have to keep being evasive and tricky.
right.
And that huge asymmetry between the factions is a lot of fun because it's like you really want to play both factions in this game to get a feel for how each of them play and appreciate how kind of the particular kind of stress that each faction grants you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's part of what makes me feel like this game is such a feat in terms of, beautiful design. It's difficult to get this right. It's difficult to make this game balanced, relatively balanced for both sides, interesting for both sides, and also thematic for both sides. I mean, that is a really hard challenge. And in my opinion, other games like it, like, talking about War for Arrakis, I feel like it fails on one of those fronts at least, which to me is like the balance side. And that's got a great team behind it as well, and a lot of money and a lot of play testing. And still they're having to, sort of patch things with the expansions and with the reprinted rules. Star Wars Rebellion, it's like right out of the box, you have a great experience for both sides of the table. Um, some of the stuff that I really like about it, that asymmetry of the economy is so interesting, where it's like, geez, the Empire has like so much funds, and then the rebels trying to pick and choose the correct battles, and sometimes being forced into a battle they really don't want because the Empire either gets lucky or sniffs them out a little bit. But that I agree that is a very interesting uh, little puzzle to figure out on both sides.
I want to latch onto that for just 1 second, which is to say that I think that the components of this game are essentially perfect
Mm.
for what they're trying to portray. And I can't express how demoralizing it is as the rebels when you see in the Imperial build queue, like, let me just put
Yes.
yeah, it looks like 4 Star Destroyers are in the queue and a couple AT-ATs. Oh yeah, the other Death Stars coming and like in the Rebel queue, you've got like, well, I've got like 3 infantry, a speeder, and maybe a Corvette. And it's like I gotta make do with this.
Right.
Like it's in the last game that Ben and I played, in the very beginning of the game, I basically denied all the possible places the rebels can build a calamari cruiser. And Ben like never had a cruiser like the whole game. There might have been one in the queue
Oh my
like at the
gosh.
end,
There
but
was one in the queue at the end. I didn't draw
yeah,
any of the
But only in the
missions that can
queue.
cheat stuff in. So it
Right.
was just like, yeah, no.
and it was still a really close game. It just shows us to show like I agree completely, Blake. Like this must have gone through a lot of play testing because this is one of those ones where you just get it a little bit wrong. Like even if the win percentages go to like 55-45 rather than probably like 49-51 like they are, then you start to feel that. But I genuinely think this game is quite balanced. And we played it with the base game and with the expansion and all that stuff, and even halfway in between with some of the expansion and some of the base game. And I think every way feels like it's a good fight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the leaders too. I like the leaders they added for the Imperial side on the expansion. It was fun seeing Jabba the Hutt.
Hmm. Yeah.
It was so funny because in this last play of the game, Jabba was in charge of spreading Imperial propaganda.
Yeah,
So
it
like
was what he was
around
doing most of the time.
usually you have like the Emperor or Tarkin doing that kind of thing, but like I had Jabba out there like spreading the good word of the Galactic Empire nonstop. Like he's telling all of his Hutt friends, "You got to join up. You got to join up."
Yeah, we
And
must have, and we actually, the Rebel base ended up on Nal Hutta as well.
Oh,
yeah,
Jabba's
really?
that was
Jabba's
what was really
homeworld.
Right
funny.
under his nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great example of like, yeah, it really does produce stories, this game, and it's fun to latch on to that stuff.
I
Yeah.
think and also just the heroes, the asymmetry of it isn't just like use a hero for everything. It's kind of like every hero's got their own specialties and they'll have special missions in the deck that are tailored to them.
You
You
got your
know,
bureaucrats,
you got your bureaucrats,
they've got the like special symbol on them and only they can do those missions. The all important bureaucrats.
yeah, like the logistics symbol or whatever it's called. But the
Yeah.
then you've got the people that are great in combat. And it's interesting because I think when people talk about this game, they'll typically say the weakest part of this game is the combat. And
Hmm.
I think I agree, but at the same time, I think it's also because the rest of the game is so polished and well designed that like the combat not being like all the way there is why it feels like not as good. But I think like in any other game, like well, maybe not Forbidden Stars, but in a lot of other games, this combat would feel like fine, and I don't really have any issues with it anyway. But like I think when people bring up that the combat isn't perfect, I think it's like, well, I think it's like it serves its purpose, but it isn't really like the focus of the game. Like there are going to be situations in the game where like there is a climactic space battle or ground battle, and then like the way that those combats play out will be really important and might be determined by like card play. In the expansion, you get rerolls, which is really good for sort of smoothing out randomness. I think that's like a
Hmm.
really good mechanic. And so I think with the expansion combat rules especially, it feels like the combat is really serviceable and I don't really mind it. But I do think that I do have that sense though, if I'm like, oh God, we're gonna have this massive space battle. I don't necessarily feel like, oh boy. I think like, oh God, we're gonna be rolling. It's like it's the same thing as
Yeah.
Twilight Imperium though, where like sometimes it's like, oh God, now we gotta do this battle, which is gonna take 15 minutes, but
Right.
I gotta do it because like I gotta stop them from, scoring this objective or in Star Wars Rebellion, sometimes the rebels are like, well, this battle is gonna be terrible, but I have to try and blow up the Death Star or something like that.
It's the only way. Yes.
But I think it's one of those things. But the reason I bring it up is I think that's also kind of thematic because it's like the Imperials almost don't even see if it's like, oh, it's like not worth my time to stamp out like the rebels in this battle. Like it would just be a blowout. Like it's better for me to just keep looking at the rebel base. And the rebels are like, I don't want to fight unless I pick the exact fight and
Hmm.
like the exact circumstances and fleet sizes like planned in advance. And so the fact that combat is kind of has that slight layer of unpredictability does lend itself to sort of the exciting thematicness of the game.
Right. It's always going to be a little bit of that when it comes to anything that you have a little bit of dice with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really difficult to design a like elegant combat system. I don't know, like something that's simple and also good. Like,
Right. Yeah. Simple, good, quick. You can maybe get two of them. You can maybe get two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
one is it's this one's good enough, is what I'm saying. I think it serves its purpose in the design.
I think so too. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It has its moments where you can get that card play in that is going to make you feel like you've really done something cool. You really, made the right play. You've done something smart. And it also has the dice where you're going to get lucky and, oh yeah, I clutched up with the dice.
Mhm.
Like there are things to get excited about with the combat. Um, sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes it is just long. But even when it is just long, it's like you still have the story aspects going for it. Oh, what's going to happen in the battle here or there? The stakes from the rest of the game are high enough to keep it interesting. I don't think the battle is like bad enough to take away from it or anything like that. Like,
Yeah. I will say
serviceable
my
is a good word.
I will say my th one of the things I didn't like about the expansion was the like green dice units. They usually made up for it by having the green dice units have better combat cards, which was like a good balance. But I'm not a big believer of the green dice in general. I think you just like want a guy that can shoot a rocket launcher or whatever as the rebels to be able to have the thing, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I think it's cool to have like one of those units in your pool so that you can use the cards, like the TIE bomber or whatever it's
Oh, that
called.
thing seems
It
like
is brutal and
annoying.
really good, but
So
I
tell me about these green dice. I'm not actually aware of these. I don't think I played
They
the
have
expansion.
they basically just have I think it's just two direct hits on them and then the rest of the sides are blank.
Ah, I see.
yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they're much more random, and so it's like it's either you get a hit of your choice or nothing, but probably nothing. But they do have awesome cards, so it's sort of like they're the unit you have one of in your unit mix, just so that you can play the card special
Right.
ability that has to have them in your fleet or ground force, and it's still worth it though because of how good the cards that they have. Um, I think the Imperials, well, I don't know about the Interdictor because it's kind of it's I think as the Imperials, it's kind of hard to reliably want to get a Superstar Destroyer or Interdictor out, and because there's just so much more important stuff to be thinking about. And it's like fun to have a Superstar Destroyer Interdictor, but a lot of the time it's like, man, I gotta find the rebel base. Like I can build the
Right.
cool stuff, but like I got bigger fish to fry, you know? And so the interdictor, I don't know, but I'm not as big a fan of. But the other ones, like I think it's the Imperials have I think the tank and the like the TIE bomber, and the
Yeah.
rebels have they got some ground buildings, I think, right?
Yeah, they get like a turret, they get a guy with a rocket launcher, they get a little like interceptor kind of speeder that can like it's like a space unit that gets like one capacity. I think its card can let you like in a ground battle it can get you like an extra ground
Oh
force.
yeah, that
And
one's
then there's
good. Yeah.
also like in a space battle it could like rescue a leader that's like on the planet potentially with just like the card play. Which is like
Hmm.
an interesting like way to get like your like uncapture get capture your get rescue your leader like over
Right.
the base ways to do
Yeah.
it.
Start a battle in order to do it instead of like going and otherwise doing it.
Play
So
that card
so
on the first turn, then declare retreat.
Yeah.
let me ask this in regards to these units. In my mind, the big reason that you have a system like this, where, okay, you've got different units and those are going to activate specific abilities on your cards, right? It gives you something to work towards. I want to have a variety of units in any given army because that's going to decrease variance for me. And so it gives you a little bit of direction. It also is a reward for actually, being able to do that, for having the resources to be able to have a diversified army. I always felt like with the base game that there was enough of that to work towards without adding more units. And so I guess I'm trying to envision, how do you get these new units? Are they instead of the units that you would otherwise be building in the base game? It's
Yeah,
just
they
this
have
similar unit types, but you
yeah,
have the
so
option now.
the builds are like, it's like squares and circles of different colors or whatever.
Yeah,
But and so rather than it being like either get a TIE fighter, I mean, I guess for the Imperials, it basically is just the TIE fighter for that
right.
symbol. But now you could build a TIE fighter or this other TIE unit. And the other thing is that the green dice do let you go over cap. So normally the rule limit is 5 red and 5 black, and the green dice can go over that. So you could have like five red, five black, and two green, or something
Right.
like that. And so even though I think that's honestly why they made the green dice bad, because they're like, if we're adding any dice, they have to be like not significantly
Mm,
increasing the power of like rolling 12 dice, rather
right.
than 10.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
but yeah, I mean, I think the expansion is not necessary. The base game is great. I think and certainly the we have played with and without the units in the expansion, and I think I don't mind playing anyway. If somebody's like, "Hey, I'm going to play Rebellion and like I want to add this part of the expansion, but we'll play with this part of the base game," I'd be like, "Great, sounds good." It doesn't
Yeah. It doesn't
not
change
a
the feel of the game enough for you to be like, ah, with or without, I have a strong preference.
yeah, it's not a big deal for me, honestly.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
just if you're a big
that's a
fan
good
of
thing.
Rogue One, like it adds all the Rogue One stuff. So if you're like
Oh,
really into
okay,
that,
yeah.
then like, yeah, sure, add it in. If you're like
Right.
watching Andor a bunch, you're like, oh, Andor sucked in our game. He just got
Oh,
captured immediately, and then I was never able to get him back. So
Oh
I
no.
haven't seen Andor, but I heard a
me
lot of it's in
either.
prison, and like Andor spent this whole play of the game in prison up until like the very end. It was really funny. He showed up and was immediately captured the turn he came out.
Yeah, I special recruited him. I used the special mission to get Cassian specifically.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Again, another example of you can kind of get these cool stories out of it, which is so great. I do want to quickly go back to this point Will mentioned earlier about the components. I agree the components are very, very good in this. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I think that they're perfect. Um, because I really don't like this is a super small thing. I really don't like the bases for the heroes. Like these little like bean shaped things. Why aren't they round? You know?
Oh,
Like that
oh
pisses me
yeah.
off.
Interesting.
Genuinely. I don't like it. It's like because the thing is, they made a decision there. We already had the technology for bases on little cardboard standees, and they were round. And these guys were like, we're gonna make them into beans. We're gonna like cinch the waist on those stands. And I guess good on them for trying something different. I'm sure that they had the same mentality when approaching other aspects of the design, but the cinched bean standee holder things don't work for me, you know. Swing and a miss. That's all I'll say.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't know if I don't know if the podcast is gonna survive this take. I feel like I feel like we're gonna get some angry comments about the cinched bases.
Yeah, somebody really likes them somewhere, I'm sure.
I've never really thought about it. There must have been a reason for it, huh? They had to have been like, I mean,
Maybe it's to help
huh.
it pass the grandma test. They're like, oh, somebody's grandma finds it easier to grip than a circle because she's got sweaty fingers,
Maybe
you
the
know?
factory was like, hey, like, we'll give you a discount if you want these things we have lying around from other project. We'll cut you like 50% off on the
Maybe.
beans if you don't want the circle bases. And they're like, okay, sure.
Yeah,
And
Star
that
Wars
was it.
Rebellion would not have been able to be produced if they used the circular bit. I know that's not
That
what you're saying, but I'm taking it one step further.
I mean,
Okay.
it is like $100 game. Yeah, they
Yeah,
had to bring the cost down. That tiny bit of plastic they save on cinching the bases, hmm,
right.
that's like 5 cents a unit or something, right?
It must be. Yeah.
You
It's
got a
funny
lot
those
of you
things.
got a lot of game in this box though. This is definitely
Oh
like
yeah.
that FFG era where like you get a big box game and you get a ton of stuff
Right.
in it. Mostly little plastic miniatures. But again, I like these. These are the kind of ones where it's like the Forbidden Stars miniatures where they're big enough that you can tell what it is,
Yes. Yeah.
but they're not so big that it's like disrupting your ability to play the game or whatever. And I think
Yeah.
some things like the Death Star having its own little stand and being of the size it is good because it's kind of providing this sense in the game for both people like that's the Death Star. Um
Yeah.
I think that wouldn't be conveyed as well by standees, I guess, in this particular game.
Yeah, I mean, I was also, I think that we do have the standees as the heroes. I was reading a BGG thread recently about like what, like, why not standees? Why miniatures? And somebody brought up a good point, which was, uh, if you have like a game with more than two people where you're like facing off of each other, if you're on the like profile looking at an acrylic miniature or whatever, it's flat, and so you can't really tell what it is. So like, the heroes being acrylic miniatures works because like you're usually facing them toward yourself and your opponent.
Right.
But if it was like, I mean, I guess that's another argument for why four player wouldn't be as good.
What do you think of these ones?
Yeah,
Boop.
you mean the heroes being cardboard standees or whatever there?
yeah. Oh yeah, the
How do
like
you feel about
Christmas
those?
tree,
Yeah, the Christmas tree ones where it has a slit on two things and you insert it, and now it's like the three-dimensional,
the
Yeah,
3D,
yeah, I
2D.
guess the components aren't perfect. What they should have done is they should get the uprising standees and color code them to be Imperial and Rebel. Because I think one thing that happens with this game kind of often is at the end of like the turn when everybody's getting all their heroes back and their missions and stuff, sometimes somebody will mistakenly take somebody else's hero because
Yeah.
it's just there's so many of them on
That's
the
not
board.
your leader. Where's my Jabba?
Yeah, where's my Jabba? But Chewbacca's not working for the Empire, and I think like I mean, this is really splitting hairs, but if they had either done maybe different colored bases, or if they'd done like acrylic standees like in Uprising that are coded for their factions, then I think that would probably
right.
that
But
would
Yeah.
it's
be
pretty hard to and that was sort of
yeah
what I was getting at with the stands being cinched. It is
yeah.
pretty hard to criticize the components on this,
It's not a
My
big deal, but either
my
way, yeah.
my nitpick is the droid, all of the droids in the franchise being reduced to rings. You don't get them as characters.
Mm,
I think
R2D2
that's,
should be a hero. Yeah,
yeah, like I don't know. There's some of it where I'm like,
right.
oh, come
maybe
on,
not
a
3PO, but
ring, you know?
That
Yeah.
does discount the importance of the droid in the Star Wars universe. Like when I
It,
see these new Star Wars shows that are all coming out, that's one of the things I always look for is like, ooh, what cool droid are they going to do this time, Because they always have so much personality. And to me, that's a big part of it. I think that's a fair critique. Let me ask you guys this. How do you feel about the game length on Star Wars Rebellion?
it can go a little long sometimes, but I don't think it's like egregious ever. I think it usually ends like pretty climactically. I think pretty much every game we've had, it's been like there's only like two planets left that the rebel base could be, or like, like it usually feels pretty close, like you're flying by the seat of your pants, which I think is good.
sometimes it's like you know where the rebel base is. The Imperial player knows where the rebel base is, and they can't get there in time, and you're just like,
Right.
okay, GG. Like we don't need to
Yeah.
play it out. Like
Me,
you know,
we
you
we
got
had a
it.
game like that, Will.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
did. And sometimes it's like that doesn't feel like anticlimactic to me though. Like in this particular game, it's kind of like, well, nice job.
Right.
You
Like it becomes apparent like, you really did hide the rebel base long enough.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's one of those like we don't have to play this out because I
Yeah.
cannot get there.
It's why the rebels win, because the Empire just gives up.
Right.
They just go,
Yes.
you got
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
GG. You know?
Stuck in space traffic on the way to the rebel base.
I do find the games where the Empire does have a shot at winning that last battle a little bit more exciting though.
I think it's better that way too. I'd prefer there to be like some battle in orbit over the rebel base,
Right.
maybe even with the Death Star there.
Perhaps
Really
even
make
with
it
a Death Star.
exciting, which doesn't happen every game by any means, but has happened a few times in the past where the Death Star is in orbit. So if it's allowed to, it means basically what it means is that if the ground combat does not have to be successful, if the Imperial player has like the Death Star laser mission, I believe it's is it like forget what it's called, but anyway, if they have
It's
that card, they don't need to win the like ground combat. They just need to win the space combat, then send a hero there with that mission afterwards to blow up the planet with the rebel base on it. And so the space combat is everything. It's like they have to blow up the Death Star right then.
Right.
And usually at that point in the game, the rebels will have the plans because it's kind of inevitable that they get them if they're mining through the deck, as they should. And so there will be like a moment that's like, holy crap, like, the Death Star will be in firing range in 5 minutes. You know?
Right. Yeah.
It's really funny because I think one of the last games we played, Will, like the inverse happened. I moved the Rebel base to Hoth to be under the Death Star so that I could come out and blow it up.
Yeah, this was really funny. So I was building the Death Star, like the Death Star under construction was on Hoth, because when you do that, you have to put it on a remote planet. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's not Hoth, which is true. It was not Hoth at the time. And so meanwhile, it's just over there. And my like force in that sector, and kind of the southeast sector from the Imperial point of view, was not on Hoth. It was like one system away. And it was kind of lurking there for a while, but then later Ben moved to Rebel Base. And in like the possible moves in the like relocation, I assume Hoth was in the pile, and he was like, "Oh, I'll just go to Hoth," and then rally forth, and immediately after the Death Star was completed, he showed up and was able to blow it up before my actual fleet got there, and so it was kind of a funny situation.
That's a heads up play right there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. That had to be some meetings on the Rebel side. It's like, what do you want to do? You want to move the base under the Death Star? What are you talking about? It's crazy
Yeah.
enough to work?
It's crazy enough to work. I could hit a womp rat from 50 meters. Yeah.
Well, it was funny. It was like Luke had already gone on the Yoda quest, so it was
Oh,
like, no,
really?
I've
He
I've
was
got
Super Luke.
this.
Luke,
Yeah,
Luke, Luke for once in like all of our plays actually was good. Usually he's like dead weight or gets captured or turned to the dark side or something, but this time he
Hmm.
actually showed up, immediately did his training, and then just was, putting in work.
Let's go, Luke. That's hype.
Anyway, I don't know if I have much else to say.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that solves it.
You want to hop into
Shall,
ratings?
yeah, yeah, let's hop into ratings.
I'll give Rebellion an 8 out of 10. I'll play this a good amount of the time. I like it a lot. I don't think I have much more to say other than that. It's very thematic.
Hmm.
That's where I usually land on it.
Hmm. An 8 from Ben. Dang.
An 8 from me. Yes.
Would you like to go, Will, or shall I?
Uh, you could go, Blake.
I'm gonna give Rebellion, and I'm a little bit on the fence between like an 8.5 and a 9, but I'm gonna go 8.5. And here's my reasoning. When it comes to two-player games that are not like dueling games, essentially, they're not like deck-based dueling games. It can be hard to find something that has not only the like weight and like, crunchiness of Rebellion, but also the intrigue. And this to me just really, really scratches a niche that I don't see happening elsewhere. I think it is a really, really um good, well thought out, well tested design. And when it comes to like, oh, we're gonna have a day where we can only do two players, I feel like this is like always a great option. It's like something to get excited about.
I'm going 9 on this. I really like this game. I might go so far as to say I love this game. I don't think I've ever had to play this game where I didn't have like a really awesome time. And I do think sometimes it's like when it's over, it's like, whew, I really took it out of me. But I think that's what it
Right.
is. It's like it's a two-player game, as you were saying, Blake, where like it's a main event two-player game. It's not like let's play a bunch of quick two-player games. It's kind of like, okay, we're gonna play like this big two-player game. And I think in that category of game, this is probably my favorite. If I think Sekigahara is pretty cool too, but this one is like I think this just takes the cake for me. This is probably I'm not always playing big two-player games. Um, but if I am, I think this is probably my top pick. So not much else to say about it. This is probably my favorite Corey design, period. I think he really knocked it out of the park with this one.
Heck yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
See
well,
ya.
yeah, thanks for the episode. Thanks for watching. Uh, come back next week. Hopefully we do as well. Bye.